Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Minority Advantage. Today, I have here with me Maryam Imwase. She's from Uganda. She's going to tell you all about her journey. She's a product manager. But before we start, make sure you like and you subscribe. Okay. Maryam, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
How is Washington? How's the weather in Washington?
It's cold. It is very cold today, but I am from Cleveland, so I should not be complaining about the
Oh,
cold.
yeah. That's another level, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so before we get into product management, I would like you to tell people about product management. But before we get into that, let's get into your background a little bit. Can you tell me how you were raised and where you grew up?
So, how was I raised and where I grew up? So, I grew up in a lot of places. I've lived in South Africa briefly, Canada. So, I would say that my childhood is was in Cleveland, and I had very strict parents. I was the firstborn, and they wanted me to become an engineer. So, you know how with immigrant parents, it's two types of professions. You're either an engineer or a doctor, right?
Yeah.
You don't become a lawyer. You don't become an artist or a musician. You need to be an engineer or a doctor. So the good thing is I was actually very good in math. I really enjoyed math and the sciences, but that wasn't something that I wanted to do. But it was to please my parents. So I went to, like, fast forwarding to college, I went to school to get a degree in engineering. And that is not where I am right now, but that is what has influenced me to start that career.
Okay, so you mentioned you grew up in Cleveland, but you mentioned you were in South Africa. I know you were born in Uganda, right?
Mhm.
So how long did you live in South Africa and then was it Canada?
Yeah. So I was in South Africa. I was a baby, but I was in South Africa for, I think, about until it was about a year. And then my parents moved to Canada, and we actually lived in Calgary, Alberta, and in Toronto. And then Toronto came Cleveland, and we've been stationed in Cleveland ever since.
Yeah, you guys love the cold weather, right?
For some reason, it doesn't bother my parents, but that's weird. Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward to Cleveland. That means you went to high school in Cleveland, you went to college in Cleveland?
I went to elementary, middle school, and high school in Cleveland, and then I went to Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's where you studied engineering in Ohio State.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a good background there. Now, product management. If you can tell us what a product manager does, who is a product manager?
A product manager is the person that spearheads a product to its next level. I know that sounds very, vague or not very clear. But think of like the traditional role of a project manager. So, what is the role of a project manager? They have a project that they're responsible for, and they manage the tasks, they manage the risks, they make sure that the team is meeting specific milestones. That can also be translated to a product manager. However, a product manager is going to be more hands on involved, actually doing a lot of research. That could include analytics, that could include talking to customers, and that's in the very beginning phase. Then that product manager is supposed to help build specific requirements and understand what features that the organization should move into development. And you don't want to move into development without any type of supportive documentation or data to support that. And once you move into development, it's pretty much standard where you have the development team that would essentially build that feature and it gets tested. And then obviously there's the last phase, which is rolling it out. But you have to validate to make sure that whatever feature you just launched is well received, adopted by the specific users, and so forth. So project managers don't necessarily get involved with the weeds. Um, product manager, they're responsible for that product. And I'm a more of a hands-on person, and that's what I enjoy. I enjoy researching and understanding user behavior and just rolling something out and seeing the results.
That's interesting. So where do you stand on the product managers are mini CEOs thing? And people say, yeah, that's true. People say that's full of bullshit. Where do you stand on that?
Um, where do I stand on product management as a whole?
As a no, as a mini CEO, as a mini CEO, as a
Oh, a mini
yeah.
CEO. Okay. Um, I guess you could say that because part of product management is developing the product vision and strategy. And now you have a lot of companies that have actual products per se that are either end user facing or, directly sold to consumers. And I would actually believe that because the whole organization is reliant on that product strategy and product vision. So it's the responsibility of the product manager to understand the application or that platform better than anybody else. And they are the ones that are supposed to craft that vision and make sure that there is a significant return on it.
Okay, okay. So how would you explain product manager very well. For somebody like me who's been in tech for a while, I understand exactly what you're saying. You used project management as an example to kind of use it to gear towards that. But let's just say I'm your little brother or I just don't know anything about tech. You tell me you're a product manager. In just a few words, what would you tell me you do? Like, what do you do? Maryam, what do you do? Just tell me, what do you do?
So the way that I would put it is, do you see the mobile device that you have, in your hand that you carry all the time? My job is to make sure that if you have an issue with a specific screen or if something doesn't make any sense, I need to figure out why that is annoying you or it's not working out and I have to fix it. And it's my responsibility to capture that information, capture the feedback from you, redesign it, develop it, and then launch it so that your experience is not interfering with the fact that we designed something differently.
I like that. I like that. So it's everything, right? It's strategy, it's customer satisfaction, it's
Mhm.
everything. It's just the whole product. You want me to enjoy my experience with your product.
Exactly. Exactly. We're all about the end user, making sure that we make the end user happy through these products.
Over glorified customer service personnel, you guys. Um, so what job did you do before? Did you have a job before you completed school or you waited until you completed school?
So my parents were not advocates of us working and going to school. So up until probably my first job out of college, I was doing sort of odd jobs that they weren't aware of. But it wasn't easy to get those jobs without the experience. So I just focused on doing well in school.
Wait. You were doing odd jobs they weren't aware of. So you were sneaking around. That's what you were doing.
No, I mean, I wasn't sneaking around. I mean, like, for example, at the university, I would like just work at if the what is it if there was a position open to work at the library, like I would do that. I would babysit. Like, it was just random things that didn't really require. I'm not going to say didn't require a lot of effort, but it didn't require me to be inflexible with my schedule.
Mm.
Unlike if I had obviously gone through a actual hiring process and worked at, let's say, like a fast food chain or some type of brick and mortar business, like that requires you to go through a process and then they ask you to work during specific schedules. So I didn't want to be boggled down by that, especially when I was in school, because taking an engineering course does require a lot of your time. So I just tried to do some odd things, like even if it meant like doing someone's hair and getting some money from it, like that was something that I would do. But I didn't officially have a job until I had graduated.
So you did anything to earn it back.
Well, I mean, it's I'm a very independent person. So when someone is offering to give me money, I'm like, no, let me make my own money. And my parents did not see eye to eye about that. So
I see. I see. So, product management. How did you get into product management?
so it's actually quite a long story, but I'll give you the short version. When I graduated, even though I had an engineering degree, my first job was with a consulting firm, and I was staffed as a business analyst. And I know they still have business analysts to this day because they need folks to gather specific requirements, do gap analysis, and so forth. So I was a business systems analyst and more on the technical side, and we were using a framework called Waterfall. So there's still companies that do Waterfall, but back then I recognized that we were not building a product or designing in the sense that we were putting the user first. And I recognized that when I would attend usability testing sessions, and I would hear all this feedback from the users, and it would be communicated to the leadership or the executive team, and they just would not, it would not be received well, or they would just dismiss it. And I didn't know that there was a framework called Agile at the time, but I knew that what I was observing was something that needed to be applied in order for us to correct the product. Otherwise, you're just forcing a product down someone's throat, especially if they don't have any other option. And the other key thing that I have to mention is that when I first started at this consulting firm, I was working in government, in the government space, so at a state government. So people were conditioned to accept what was being given to them. And I was like, that is not how you want to design a product. So I actually wanted to go to a different firm, and I ended up going to another consulting firm, but it was still the same thing. I was still a business analyst, and I still had the ability to work with users. But then I was also branching out to customer relationships. So working with more key stakeholders on the government side, being able to manage relationships, being able to make decisions, but then most importantly, working like cross-functionally. So with other cross-functional teams. So whether that's engineering, whether that is, there was another team training, you know, now I'm beginning to see like the full life cycle and what it means to work in waterfall from inception all the way to the release. Now, still, I was in a waterfall framework. I wanted to go to Agile, and by then I knew what Agile was. And then fast forward to when I was at my last consulting firm, I started out doing jobs that were more related to exposure of a product. So I had started as a data analyst for about 8 months, got exposure to analytics. By then, I had already acquired skills, like soft skills, and I was getting more hard skills under my belt. And then I transitioned into a lead business analyst. And by then, I was in an agile environment. I had more responsibilities, but I did not have the right exposure. And that right exposure was being able to collaborate with the users to elicit some feedback, to do a discovery, to do research, to apply analytics, to apply design, to apply any other factors that would influence what design would be handed over to development. And I really enjoyed that. And by then, there was a increasing need in the industry to have UX UI designers, to have folks who had a background in data analytics, to have folks who worked on products and they knew, what it meant to gather the right requirements, but those requirements were influenced by other factors that you would have researched up front. So my role at that last company did not have that. And I began researching specific roles that I wanted to do. And product management was one. And there's been a bunch of things that kind of surfaced to get me to this position, but I knew that product management is what I wanted to do at that time.
Oh, okay. So would you say what would it take for somebody to be a product manager? Will the person have to have business analytics background like you did?
Mhm.
Does the person have to have a degree like in engineering or one of the top degrees? What would you say are the prerequisites to entering a career like product management?
So degree is useless. Like, we're just gonna throw that degree. It does not even matter what degree you have, as long as you have the ability to assess markets, to understand user segments, to do a little bit of data analytics. And I think when people hear that, they think they need to be an expert. You don't need to be an expert. As long as you're able to interpret the data to some level to make a decision, then that's good enough. And even if you know how to build visualizations, like that's great, right? It's just, you just need enough to be able to perform the job. That is why there are specific folks who would specialize in that area. Um, I had a business analyst background, which helped me understand the client relationship, the working with engineers, being able to define requirements. That's a big piece of product management, but I cannot say that that is what is going to get you into the door. Um, if the biggest thing is if you have a very well-rounded background with working with engineers, understanding like a tech stack, understanding markets, understanding analytics, understanding design, UI, UX, then you have enough experience and understanding to get your foot into the product management role. But it is very difficult to interview through these specific product management interviews, because you just don't know what they're looking for exactly. You may have it on paper, but then when they're asking you specific questions, sometimes it will throw you off. So I would like to say there's a specific journey or a specific role that you would have, which would be a stepping stone, but it could be anything. I've even seen technical folks,
Yeah. So
developers. Yeah.
you mentioned a lot of things, right? You mentioned the technical part. You mentioned about you talked about requirement gathering. You talked about UX, UI. You've talked about customer relationships. It's just like what we said in the beginning. It's like a mini CEO, right? It's like you are touching base at everything.
Mhm.
So somebody from the outside, it can seem very, very overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? Like I need to know analytics. I need to know visualizations. I need to know all of this, all of that. Um, what would you say? What would you say to somebody who's looking at this? You're like, oh, you don't need a degree, but at the same time, you're like, I need this and that and that and that. All those things look like different separate careers altogether.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who is overwhelmed hearing you say all of that?
So the first thing is, if you want to get into product management, understand the product development life cycle, right? Because each phase of that life cycle requires a different skill set. So if you're able to understand or align your existing skills, like let's say you're like, oh, well, I was a coder. So I understand that the development phase, you do X, Y, and Z. Great. Once you're able to align what your existing skill sets apply to in terms of what phase, then look at the other areas and see what interests you, right? And try and maximize that, understand as much knowledge as you can. Because if you try and just understand all of product at once, again, like you said, it's going to overwhelm you. Find something first where you have skills aligned to a specific phase in the product development lifecycle. And then two, find a skill set that you would like to learn that you don't have within the product development lifecycle, and then just begin there. Just learn the concepts there.
Okay, so for someone with your skill set, with your background, with your experience, what is the salary range for someone like you?
So, someone in my position, so I'll give you several examples. If you are working at one of the tech companies, they will range, like they're at the top of the tier. they will range from 180 to 220. Okay. If you're working in so-called like the banking industry, Goldman Sachs will probably pay people between 150 and 200,000. Now, when it comes to the startups, it is like a varying range, because certain startups would be at a point where there's exponential growth and they're seeing a lot of success. And then there's some startups that are very, very brand new and there's not much to really gain. However, what you are gaining is experience and knowledge that you probably wouldn't have at a large tech company because they silo you. So if you're at a startup, that range can obviously be between 110 all the way up to 150. That is such a huge range, but it just depends on where that startup is in their business.
Okay, so if let's say I'm somebody who wants to enter the product management area, or just from listening to you, you have convinced me, and I want to get into product management. Um, where would you say I would start? Let's use you for example, right?
Mhm.
If you were starting all over again and you were going into product management, you know you want to go into product management. You have all this knowledge about product management already. So where would you start? If you can give me maybe your first few steps, 5 to 10 steps that you would do to get into the field, to get an entry level position into the field. What would you do?
So the first thing is really understanding the key terms in product management. This is important because let's say you want to start reaching out to people, you want to be able to engage and have a conversation with them or understand what they're saying. So step one is to understand the terminology, understand the product development life cycle. Just get like a just educate yourself in of that field
Do you
or
have
educate
a
yourself.
do you have a particular resource or something you would go to for that particular one, for that step, for step one?
Yeah, so this is so funny. So I have a couple of books right here. So the first one, which is product strategy. So this is really good. This helps you understand how to strategize your product in a very intense market. If you're someone who's just trying to understand, let's say, story mapping, right? This is another great resource, user story mapping.
Hmm.
There's a whole bunch of other books, but there's some great sites called, I think it's called Product Plan. That's a really great one. If you go to the blogs, they'll give you enough information as to, what product managers should be doing, what tools they should be using, how to strategize, who to collaborate with. So all of that information is available to you, whether through books or online. So that's step one. Step two is to obviously try and connect with somebody who is in that product management world, right? Because that could be somebody who could be 7 degrees of separation to you getting another job that is product management related, right? So you want to be able to build your product management network. That could be joining some LinkedIn organizations. That could be what I did was I joined Product Gym. This is not a plug for Product Gym, but it was great. Like I've met people and learned a lot about the whole profession. Um, or you could
I
just
mean,
reach out.
even if it's a plug for product gym, I mean, product gym is great. I mean,
Yeah.
many people have can attest to it that product gym is great. So definitely plug away, give them a shout out.
So yeah, there's like I think it's called Product School. There's so many, so many different organizations, but there are some that are at the very top of their tier, and you want to make sure that you are networking in those organizations. So step one, educate yourself. Step two, get yourself involved in a network. Step three, and this is what a lot of people, kind of forget, is you want to be able to get your resume updated to reflect what a product manager should be looking like, right? Like everybody wants to jump the gun and they want to go straight to the interviews. Well, Now is the time, after you've been communicating with people and understanding the terminology, now is the time to really polish your resume and see, does this align with what a product manager should be doing? And if not, where do I need to make changes? And if you did build the network that is needed, those individuals will help you polish the resume. If you don't have that access, like, there are many, many resources that will help you upgrade your resume.
Okay, do you have any in mind?
Um, so I will say Product Gym helped me. They've been really, really, really good about it. I can't think of another resource.
So let's talk about Product Gym for a second. So for those who don't know what Product Gym is, can you give us a quick explanation of what Product Gym is?
Yeah, so Product Gym, unlike its competitors, focuses solely on not just getting your foot into the door for an interview, but nailing that interview, and then obviously, getting to that next level, which is the job offer. So even though they teach you basics or concepts that are within the product development lifecycle and how to strategize and how to be a decision maker, everything that they're teaching you is helping you to better answer in interviews. Because unlike other interviews that I've been in that were not product management, they make you do case studies, they make you go through several rounds. I mean, we're talking very intense. And if you don't prepare yourself for that, you are just doomed to, I
Yeah.
hate to say it, you're going to be doomed to fail. Now, it took me a year, and it did not take me a year because I just was not getting the results that I needed. I actually got a job offer within 3 months of that program, but that program or that job was not the right one. And I just knew that it just didn't align with what I wanted to do. And I just continued interviewing. But Product Gym, if you put in the work, you will get that interview. But I will say it takes a lot of work.
Okay, so you will definitely recommend Product Gym?
Product Gym. I think there's like a product management school. There are some competitors for Product Gym, but they don't have the same sort of like business vision or model. They're more related to helping you understand product management as a whole. Product Gym, if you are looking for a job, Product Gym will be the only one out there that helps update your LinkedIn profile, update your resume, understand what questions to ask when you're interviewing, how to answer questions. These are things that you're not really going to find in a lot of books or online resources.
Oh, okay. So shout out to Rich and his team.
Rich.
So that's step three. Do you have any other steps, or you think that covers it?
If you are somebody who's on the outside and wants to get into product management, those are the core three.
Those are the core three.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I like it. Short and sweet. Those are the core three. Um, so before we even go, so let's say as a product, if somebody from the outside, right, coming into product management, what should you expect as an entry level salary?
It's an interesting one. It varies. And I think maybe I could speak to it because I've seen so many. If you start with consulting, it is definitely going to be higher just because it's relatively new to consulting, not new to the tech company or the tech industry, but just new to consulting because they didn't know how to support that role. So you have a lot of freeway with the rates. I mean, I would say now this would also depend on where you live. So this is consulting. It could range from like 130 to about 180. Um, Again, if you're going to do startups, but you want to be able to explore, it's going to be even a wider range. Tech companies are so competitive, right? And
Very competitive.
very competitive. And so I didn't even go down that route. I was just like, can if I could take the advantage of working at a startup company, because think about it, you gain so much visibility and you are defining that vision. Whereas a tech company, they have product managers and then they have senior product managers, and then there's a director for product manager. So if you're an entry level, you're going to be sort of like down at the bottom of the pyramid, and a lot of what is driving the vision is going to be disseminated down to you. Whereas if you're in a startup, you have all of the free range, right? It's a little bit riskier, but you gain more experience. So I think for someone who's trying to enter in, yes, like the salaries are gonna vary, but what's most important is, what are you trying to learn from this experience, right? Are you just trying to work with a large tech company just to get that on your resume? Are you looking to have exposure and responsibilities in markets that are very dynamic? Are you looking to just focus on one specific product so you're not responsible for many products? It just depends, right? It depends on what you're looking for.
So what you're saying is very spot on. One thing I realized is, because of the competitive nature of product management in the tech community, some people start as product analysts in that sense, right? They go through the product analyst route. If they go into those big tech companies. Have you seen that?
I've seen that role, and I haven't met very many people who've done that.
You've done that. Okay. So before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, what do you think we can do to improve representation for minorities, for Black people in the corporate space, in the tech space, with high income salary jobs? What do you think we can do? What are we not doing? Or what do you think um you see that is just glaring?
So I think the biggest concern that I've seen or had for a very long time is for folks who are able to get their foot in the door. You have other folks behind you who are trying to do the same thing. And don't forget those people. That is my biggest thing, is that you were able to pave the way, and it may have been challenging, but you've been able to pave the way. So be able to help the folks who are following behind you. And I think for at least like the Black community, I think we're a little bit prideful, but we recognize that sometimes we need help, right? Like, we need that network of people. So whether it is at that organization, or if you're on LinkedIn and you see somebody who has like similar, skill sets, like reach out to them. All the other communities do it. They reach out and they help. But for some reason, it's like in the Black community, we help only when it's beneficial. And then we don't want to help because there's like a fear that this person is going to, elevate past me, and so forth. So I would really, really like for the Black community to just understand that we have to stick together. We need to help each other out. And if you're able to get to that level of success, like, there's somebody or a couple people behind you who are looking to get just a helping hand. And it doesn't mean that you need to divulge like all of your secrets, but just enough where they have a stepping stone, a building block to get to the next level.
Wow, thank you very much. That was very, very insightful. That was actually one of the things that I've spoken about with a lot of people. So that was great. You shed some light on that. This will wrap up the interview now. Make sure you like, you subscribe. Go follow Maryam on LinkedIn, okay? Blow out her LinkedIn. If she's free, she will answer. If she's not, you can be in her inbox for a couple months. It doesn't.
I'm a poor communicator. I will respond. I just, it's horrible.
Okay, guys, make sure you like and you subscribe. Until next time.